Good morning, Leigh.
Once again, you found me with a vash of coffee.
She's caffeinated. She's ready to go.
She is ready to go. She may still be in her gym gear, but she's ready to go.
Look at me, Leigh. I'm growing. I'm drinking, I think it's pronounced water.
Oh my God, you're hydrating. I should probably do that as well. I just don't enjoy the drinking of water. I know that I need to, but I feel like my ancestors survived for generations on tea alone. And so I just feel like I should be allowed to do that too.
Yeah, understood. I mean, I kind of feel sad that we have moved away from the concept of what was known as small ale, which was just because the drinking water in England was so disgusting, water was not clean. People would just have beer all day. They would just have a low alcohol percentage beer. And that would just be what kept people hydrated for centuries. Bring back small ale.
Oh my God. No, I mean, we saw the cores over the weekend. We saw the cores and the absolute iconography of Andrea Core just having a cup of tea on stage.
Yeah. Just putting down her fiddle for a moment, taking a sip of tea, picking back up the fiddle.
In a gown.
In a floor-length silver silk gown.
Listener, they were transcendent. They were stunning. They were all hot bitches and they knew it. Jim included, actually, to be fair to him.
Jim was bringing it. And you know what? I think he has aged in a very different way to his sisters, but he had a fun shirt on.
He was bringing the fashion. He wasn't letting the side down on the fashion.
Lots of cheeky looks, lots of shared moments. I mean, realistically, for me, it's the closest I've ever come to a religious experience.
Yeah, Runaway was huge, as was So Young Now, as was surprisingly a track that I have previously, I feel, not given full credence to. Summer Sunshine was a huge banger for me.
It was a huge banger. Also, again, I felt emotional.
I think I just feel emotional all the time at the moment.
Yeah, because it does feel like reality is slowly slipping through our fingers and...
in the words of ABBA.
Slipping through our fingers. Except it's not our wedding day, Leigh. It is in fact just that life is a nightmare.
Moving swiftly on. Shall we to the White House Pro AM, episode 17? Welcome to the Queer Gals Watch the West Wing.
Yeah, welcome back, everybody. And if you haven't listened up to this point, come on in. The water's fine.
This is a heady place to dive in.
Yeah.
This is a heady place to dive in.
Go on back to Ep 1, guys. It's honestly, I mean, not to toot my own horn, toot toot, but it is worth the listen.
Thank you so much to all the listeners who have reached out. We love hearing from our Queer Gal listeners. Mm-hmm. Love you, Huns.
You're too much. Sometimes, Leigh, you're just too much.
I have been mistaken for a drag queen by drag queens in the past. So when I was just wearing my everyday clothes.
Oh my.
Shall we to the episode recap?
So welcome to episode 17, season 1 of The West Wing. This episode is entitled The White House Pro AM or Pro Am. I don't know. It's never explained.
Yeah.
Now, I was very excited because we'd had real fun last week. We'd gone to LA, we'd had a road trip. But we were kind of just smack bang into it in DC with just legislation this week. So I'm going to try and bring the kind of the fun, the pizzazz, the sparkle.
The zest for life, if you will.
Yeah, because this app needs it. We were promised something very specific in the previously on at the top of the episode because it's very frisky and free, focusing on Jed and Abby and their relationship, shots of them in bed together, not when he was ill, not like that. And then touching in with Zoe and Charlie and the lovely Gina. We open with FLOTUS. She's back. She's with us. Stockard on our screens once again.
She is taking no prisoners.
Abby Bartlet is here and she is in an interview with a teenage boy, just telling him over and over again not to be nervous.
This poor teenager.
He's like, I'm not nervous. And she's like, because you could be, if you were nervous, you could tell me if you were nervous. Because I would be nervous if I were doing what you were doing. But are you nervous? Do you feel like you're nervous? Because you can talk to your parents if you're nervous. I'm like, this is not a great pep talk. Not a great pep talk. She then just shouts across the room, Lily, I should have worn the grey suit. Which is just like, I don't know. I love Abby Bartlett.
Also prompts me to say, who is this fun new character?
Who is Lily?
Lily is fun.
So it turns out Abby's kind of whole thing is sort of surrounding children's health, which makes sense because she's a doctor. But she's specifically having this interview with this 14-year-old boy because he has started a charity to try and end child slavery because his pen pal was sold into slavery.
I feel this maybe deserved another pass.
Yeah.
It just feels like a kind of it's his pen pal.
Yeah, it's like Jeffrey, even Jeffrey, the character of the 14-year-old boy, is like, this is paper thin at best.
Yeah, like that. It's just when your pen pal gets sold into child slavery, it's a tough one.
Yeah, one must start a movement.
Yeah, I mean, fair play.
Yeah, like doing more political activism than I do on a day-to-day basis. So, I mean, Leigh, what were you doing when you were 14?
Ooh, I was wearing a lot of kind of black lace. There was red through my fringe. I had lowlights.
Wow.
I was having an allergic reaction to hair dye. That's what I was doing at 14. That's when we discovered Leigh Douglas was allergic to hair dye.
Wow. Yeah, at 14, I was just doing like a lot of sport all the time.
Oh my God, it was the era of your Madonna abs.
It was the era of like my Madonna physique, just like pure muscle, no body fat, just crunching every day. Crazy. So strong, so lonely. But I was not saving a pen pal from child slavery, that's for sure. I was just probably watching like One Tree Hill and wishing I had boobs. Anywho, to a new fun character alert. This is Lily, and Lily is part of Abby Bartlett's staff, and we kind of feel like she's potentially the communications director for, or like deputy communications director for Abby, or do we think she's Abby's chief of staff?
I think it is later revealed in this episode that she is Abby's chief of staff.
Cool. But she's here to play. She's got a slick back bun, black suit, red polo. She's
ahead of her time with the slick back bun. That's having a real moment.
Yeah, she's cute. She's smart. She's not rattled by Sam Seaborn at all. Sam's basically like coming to talk to her being like, look, you guys, great, like good stuff getting this interview. That's cute. But like, that's nice for you for today. And Lily's like, well, actually, can you like move some of Jed's stuff around? Because like we want to keep the news cycle on this. And Sam's like, oh, but he's the president. Like, kind of probably can't do that. At which point Lily drops the bomb that Abby has a higher approval rating than Jed.
Obsessed.
So Jed's at 48% and Abby's at 61%.
Yeah, we love that for her.
48% doesn't sound good.
I mean, I think we're leading up to the midterms here, and often a president's approval rating does dip.
Right.
Leading into his first midterms as president.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's not great.
No.
It's not great.
There's no time for us to kind of like think on this because Bernie Dahl is dead.
He is.
And it's time for us to care about that. And I mean, obviously condolences, but like, I don't really care. So he was a Wall Street person, widely regarded as the chief architect of the longest peacetime economic expansion in history. He was in his fourth year of his second term as chairman of the Federal Reserve. What does that mean, Leigh? Is that like the Treasury?
That is like an excellent question. That's the kind of vibe, I guess. I don't pretend to be an expert in economics. But
that's for Jed Bartlett.
That's for Jed. I do not have a Nobel Peace Prize in economics, but I know that it's a job that's appointed by the president. So that's all I know.
So a quick Google tells me that the Federal Reserve is basically like the United States, like the government's bank.
He manages the money.
He's the money man.
He's the money guy.
He's the money guy. So that bomb drops and Sam Seaborn just turns to Lily and goes, looks like you just lost your news cycle. Smash, opening credits. Look, television just doesn't do this anymore.
I miss an opening credit, truth be told.
Opening credits now, always they're geared up to have a like skip button for streaming purposes.
Yeah.
And like, I want the credit music to like jump me into a like throw me into the deep end.
The Band of Brothers titles put me in the emotional space that I need to be in to watch that show.
I will say that there needs to be like a 30-second cut on the BOB ones because they are too long.
Yeah.
But I would say that the West Wings are a perfect length. Time to break the news to Jed about Bernie. He's having an intelligence briefing. He seems very not into this briefing. Leo like pulls him to one side, like a little hushed conversation. And Leigh, would you like to describe your reaction?
Well, Leo's like, oh, he had a heart attack. And then I think Jed is like gearing himself up to be like, oh, okay, like, are they going to have an operation or whatever? And then Leo's like, he died. And then Jed just has like the most mum at the school gates reaction ever. Just being like, oh my God, he died?
He like half gasps and like puts his hand to his chest like, he died? But what Leo is saying is essentially because this like very prominent figure who has a very powerful job has died, the stock market is going to be like bad, like double thumbs down, bad today. And I'm assuming, I guess, like the dollar is going to weaken, stock trade numbers. But, I don't know what they're talking about, but Jed's the economic expert here. And so Bernie's deputy or like vice person was a guy called Ron Ehrlich. So he's naturally to be like Bernie's successor. But like, and so Leo's saying, okay, like, let's just announce Ron. And Jed's like, I don't want to announce Ron. I want to think about it. And Leo's like, why? And he's like, I don't know. I just want to think about it.
This is the most ridiculous storyline I've ever seen.
So let's just see how this plays out because it does come back. But I do think we'll see some of Jed's Nobel Prize winning economic knowledge coming into play this episode. And I will just say, this whole narrative is so boring when they promised us FLOTUS at the top.
Yeah.
They promised us fun with Stockard Channing, and now they're like, let's talk about economics. And I'm not jazzed, Leigh. Anyway, just a final note on Jed being the petty man that he is. He just says, Wall Street needs to trust me. And I'll tell you what else. You could have been nicer to me during this conversation. Leo's just like, what?
Also leads me to say, why are we feeling vulnerable, Jed?
Yeah. Maybe it's because, as he says, I'm not ready to jump into bed with Ron Ehrlich just yet, making me one of the few people in my family who can say that.
Is Jed implying Abby would jump into bed with Ron Ehrlich? Is he saying Zoe and, quote, his other daughters would jump into... He's implying that they would all jump into bed with Ron Ehrlich.
It's a truly unhinged thing to say. Like, who is this man? Like, I beg that we get to see him to see if it's correct. I would say that my instinct says no, he'll be a very average looking man in like his mid-50s.
Yeah.
Well, back to our faves, Josh and Donna, for their hot take of the day, which is that Donna's read a book.
So I'm reading this book about what life was like 100 years ago.
Like, that's how we open the scene with her. Like, her just walking into Josh's office while he's on the phone and being like, I've read a book. Can I tell you about it?
It's very us, to be fair.
I was going to say, this is very like when we were living together and we would just like surreptitiously go to each other's rooms and like knock on the door and just like lean in and be like, hey, I just read something and I want to talk to you about it.
No, but I need you to read this book in approximately 36 to 48 hours because I need to talk to you about it.
Yeah. And safe to say, Josh could not care less. We move on to 100% confirmation that the character of Chris Traeger from Parks and Rec, also played by Rob Lowe, is in fact just a parody of Sam Seaborn. I already kind of knew that in my heart, but like this is a full-scale confirmation moment because Sam and Toby are trying to work out how to spin the fact that the president wants to like stall on nominating Ehrlich to this role. So they're like, okay, so we'll just say that he, out of respect to Bernie and his family, that we're going to take a day before announcing the next person who's going to take up the role. Solid spin. Yeah. Solid spin work. Then just cutting into the conversation, Sam's like, I'll tell you this though, I'm going to the gym today.
That doesn't interest me.
I'm just saying, Bernie Dahl has a heart attack right out of nowhere.
It's his 5th heart attack, Sam, in 138 years.
This is a very stressful job and I haven't been to the gym in weeks.
Look at yourself, Sam. How much healthier do you want to be?
I'm just saying, if anybody needs me, I'll be at the gym and that's going to be sad for you because I'm going to live longer than you.
Don't count on it.
Yes. Like, truly Sam is having a moment where he's like, oh my God, I'm going to die one day.
I feel like men turn 30 and then are immediately confronted with their own mortality. It's like men, the day they're 29, they're like, I'm going to live forever. And then they tick over to 30 and then anyone dies. And they're like, oh my God, I'm going to die one day.
I'm so glad that you brought this up because I am fascinated by this phenomenon, which is just that I do feel like it is a completely male experience. and I was thinking about this, and obviously I got like a bit deep about it, and I was like, do you think it's just because there's so many more reasons why women die that like we don't have time to like think on our immortality? Because like obviously, you know, famously people were like, wow, she lived to the age of 25 and had 7 children before she died in childbirth. Like, you know,
I think it's because they get insecure that we're better at living than they are because we live longer.
But it's also, it is true. Yeah. So Sam is confronting mortality as a concept and Toby is eating nuts and looking stressed. Josh enters and is basically like, hey, Toby, you're going to love this meeting. Toby's obviously famously hates all meetings. Again, kind of a boring storyline, which is that there's been some sort of trade bill.
Yeah.
It's passed, but like Josh also wants to meet some more Congress people, and Toby, much like me, is just like, must we?
Yeah. And Josh is like, we can good cop, bad cop.
And Toby just says, this isn't an episode of Hawaii Five-0.
It is such an incredible and specific insult from Toby to Josh.
I also love the idea that Toby watches Hawaii Five-0. The other thing that comes up from Toby is he's like, how about you be the good cop and I'll be the cop that doesn't go to the meeting? And then as they like are walking to this meeting, Toby's like eating his little packet of nuts and he's like, I gotta exercise more and eat healthy. Like, what? Why do they get so stressed about it?
I think it's because women take the time to consider and think about death in their own time and they don't make it other people's problem. Whereas men act as if, like Lewis and Clark, they have, like Christopher Columbus, they have discovered the concept of death when someone dies.
Yeah, truly. As they enter this meeting, Josh turns to Toby and is like, every so often you're going to smile so as to indicate warmth. Which I think is a truly iconic statement.
And also, this may be how I have to get my girlfriend through large family gatherings.
To a breast briefing? I wish. To a press briefing, Leigh.
Yes, please.
So we see CJ, we see the press corps, and it would appear, Leigh, that Abby has fucked up.
Yeah. Because she's endorsed Ehrlich. She's
endorsed Ehrlich, Ron, if you will. Mm-hmm. And that news has leaked from a member of her team. Drama. And also it was Danny who like went in for the kill, being like, what's this news about Ehrlich? Like, why hasn't the president endorsed him if Abby Bartlet has? And CJ does look a little stupid.
Yeah, but also I'm really stressed that we've not had a relationship update on them in so long. Like, I need to know what's been happening for like the last 5 episodes.
Yeah, like we left it at secret kisses and that's it.
And a business dinner?
Yeah.
I need to know.
Like there wasn't even, when we were in LA, there wasn't even any like cutaways to them like sneaking into each other's hotel rooms.
No.
As she leaves this press briefing, Sam Seaborn just passes her and she says, Sam, I need you. And he says, I'm going to the gym.
Also, just a classic, I'm really like on one about men today, but just a classic, a man needing for everyone to know that he's been to the gym or is going to the gym.
Also, I think your comment in the shared doc is also valid, which is like going to the gym on a lunch break is male
such
privilege.
Male privilege. Not Ginger can't do that. Bonnie can't do that. CJ can't do that. It will mess up their blow dries. You can't go to the workout on a lunch break as a woman and continue to look professional for the rest of the day. You're going to do your whole face twice?
And what I will say as a caveat here in terms of the quote unquote look professional, we're saying like within a male dominated
through a male
workplace
gaze,
where there's an expectation that you need to present yourself in a feminine way by having hair that looks perfect and makeup, etc. Like 100%, any person can go to the gym, have a shower, come back, put their little like suit on or like shirt and slacks and get back to work. But
all we're saying is there's a lot more admin involved.
Yeah, and also just like the patriarchal pressure to be presenting yourself in a certain way in the workplace.
Yeah, although actually one of the things Alyssa Mastromonaco mentioned in her book, Fi, was that she, when she worked in the White House, was when she just kind of stopped wearing makeup because she just didn't have the mental capacity or time, which we love.
Yeah, I think that's great. What I will say is that Sam, because CJ does need him, does turn around and not go to the gym in that moment. He like throws his gym bag to Ginger. We finally meet Ginger. Hey Ginger, one line, but she's here, gals. She's here. She simply catches Sam's gym bag and then just like sweeps back to his office. But she's cute. She's got like a beautiful like red, straight, like mid-length hair and a grey pantsuit. And she looks phenomenal and I can't wait to hear more from her.
Agreed.
So before going to the gym, Sam is going to go by Lily's office, which means that we get more time with Lily and a face-off between two like rival staff teams. Sam classically handles this badly and is basically like, Lily, it must have been you that leaked this information. And listener, Lily did not take that well.
No, it does feel like POTUS's staff is very much talking down to FLOTUS's staff.
Basically like, we're more important. Now, there is a hierarchy to these things within the White House. However, mutual respect between colleagues is something that should be shared.
And ultimately, we do need to remember that FLOTUS's staff, while they're not working for the president, are political operatives. Just like you.
And most of them will have incredible CVs. It's not like she's just got like some gal pals.
Yeah. It's not like she's got ladies in waiting. Like,
yeah. Here comes Jed Bartlet with the economic chat that no one asked for, but he will give to us. So we go into the Oval Office. It is just Jed monologuing economic speak. Leo looking kind of confused, and she's just like, CJ is vacant.
She has left the building, and then she gives a line, which is the most incredible way of admitting that you don't understand something that I've ever seen. I would go so far as to say that it is a feminist act, what CJ says. Because she says, I understand the oeuvre, the basic mise en scène of what you're saying. I really don't understand anything.
It's great. And essentially, Jed was like, okay, that's fine. Anyway, let me tell you more about this economic thing. And CJ's like, what I actually came to talk about, if I could just make you pause for a moment, is this leaked story that your wife has endorsed Ehrlich. Jed was like, oh, well, I want to try and find out who of my wife's friends leaked this information. He says, try and find out who those friends of my wife's are from that wire piece and take them outside and have them shot. Can I do that? Leo says I can do that. And
then he goes through the most incredible rundown
of Abby's friends and why they don't like him.
For their own unique individual reasons.
He's like, it's going to be Phyllis, who doesn't like me. It's going to be Susan, who thinks I'm xenophobic because I don't like Mexican food. These are my wife's friends.
I just love that even though he's president of the United States, to Abby's gal pals, he's just her shitty boyfriend that they don't like.
Yeah, just his college, just like her useless college boyfriend.
Yeah.
Also, please, a moment for Herb and Marjorie Douglas,
whom Jed accidentally ran over with his car.
Like a valid reason not to like someone. Like, also, How, Jed?
Surely that should have come up during your presidential campaign. Where like Herb and Marjorie Douglas, like there with their tell-all.
Yeah. Just
in
like
People magazine,
sitting down with Oprah. Enter Zoe Bartlet, and obviously I'm immediately stressed as to why she's been called into the Oval Office. Leo's like, how are you, Zoe? And she just replies with, keeping it real.
Okay, girly.
Okay, girl, just keeping it real. And obviously Jed's like, I don't know these kids these days. But she is there for an important reason, and it is that Bartlet has decided to tell her like in detail about the letters that were kind of coming up between the conversation between him and Gina in the previous episode. It's quite a difficult conversation with Zoe, but I think for Jed, he handles it very well, which is like, he's like, this is the reality of how many letters we've been getting and how serious the threats are. And, you know, I know you're planning to go to this like club opening with Charlie as a date. But he can't come to that club opening because it's just a security threat to you and to him.
We can't adequately protect him in that environment. Yeah.
And then he's like, do you want to tell him or shall I talk to him? Which I think is really respectful that like, he's like, it's your relationship. So like, I'm going to let you talk to your boyfriend.
Yeah.
Even though he constantly goes on about the fact that he's just like in denial that she has a boyfriend.
Yeah, I think he handles this conversation with his daughter in such a emotionally evolved way.
Which is good because we also have had scenes where he's been like, I want to lock her in a dungeon and like, please don't let her go to strip clubs.
Yeah.
I thought she was going out for malteds. So like, I'm seeing some growth.
Yes.
We cut away from this to just a meeting that's really boring, and I just really didn't listen to the scene with this Josh, Toby and these Congress people. All I really watched was just Toby really passive aggressively like steeping a tea bag, just like bobbing it in and out of his mug and like eating peanuts.
Yeah, love it.
And being incredibly rude. And as they leave, Josh just says to Toby, this is why you have a reputation as a pain in the ass.
I have cultivated that reputation.
And again, this is just why Toby is perfection. Because he's like, oh no, I know I've tried hard to have that reputation. Then follows a crazy little three-hander moment between Josh, Toby and CJ, where they're all trying to work out if they're allowed to talk to the First Lady. And there's a lot of talk in this episode about like, when Bartlet asks you to do something regarding FLOTUS, like what signal did he give? As opposed to like, how far can you go to get information? Which just leads me to the conclusion that like everyone's scared of Abby Bartlet.
Including the president.
Which I think is important. Workout time with Sam Seaborn.
I am obsessed with Sam Seaborn at the gym. I love that he's not good at the gym. I've never been more obsessed with anything.
He's just like lying on a bench, like struggling to, would you call that bench pressing?
Yes.
He's just like struggling to do like a single bench press. And I kind of love that like, he's this like kind of like sexy figure in the West Wing, but actually he is still just the nerd. Yeah. Like he is still like the nerd that was in the library at school. And like obviously this feels very much like the bullying storyline coming to fruition here. But like I like that despite the fact that he's had his glow up, he is still just like not cool.
Yeah. And he's then approached by a congresswoman who's just like clearly absolutely just smashed her workout. And she says, I heard the clang and the owl and figured it must be Sam Seaborn.
Which means he's famous for being shit in the gym.
He has a reputation for dropping weights.
Also, I think this is vindication for CJ falling off the treadmill in the pilot episode.
Yes, thank you. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. It took us 17 episodes to get here, but we got here.
We got here. Vindication for the pratfall from Alison Janney. Anyway, so this congresswoman's like, can I bend your ear? So they go to a corner of the gym. And she is saying, so this bill that Josh and Toby are seeing Congress people about, which I don't, like some sort of trade bill, I don't care. She's going to add an amendment to it.
Yes.
Which can be about fucking anything, right?
Yeah.
Which is a crazy thing about American politics, which just blows my mind. So she's going to add this amendment, which I think is her being like, oh, I listened to the interview with Abby Bartlet this morning. Like I'm going to do something about like child labor.
Yeah.
And Sam's like, can you just please not do that?
Yeah.
And then they get a bit like shirty with each other. But enough on that because we will come back to it. Because we now go on a really fun walk and talk with Danny and Leo, which we've not seen before.
What a dynamic duo of men.
And just like Danny being offered a little like one-on-one off the record meeting with the press. Just Leo being like, you and POTUS going to sit down just like off the record.
I love it when being a Hun is rewarded.
However, I say this through slightly gritted teeth because Leo's like, oh, there's a meeting of like the Women of Michigan's caucus. So like Jed will be able to like dip out of that to talk to you and then he can dip back in. Then Danny says, sounds like the place will be lousy with female Democrats. Why are we shitting on female Democrats? Like, do female Democrats like have a bad rap?
I'm sorry. President Bartlet is apparently not popular with famously pools and patio guys.
Yeah.
So who do we think got Bartlet into this White House? I believe it will have been Democratic women.
Yeah. So
Thank you very much.
Can we not shit on the women of Michigan, please? Leo peels off. CJ briefly passes Danny in the corridor and he's like, hey. And she just says, hello, I don't have time for you right now.
And Danny just accepts it. Why is that so hot that he doesn't get like all... I hate this phrase. I hate this phrase, but it's the only phrase that I can think of. Like he doesn't get butthurt about it.
Mm-hmm.
He just like accepts it and is like, yeah, you're a very busy woman. You don't have time for me in this moment.
His actual response is just, okay. And then he continues walking and going about his day. Just respecting her professionalism and the fact that she's just too busy.
And now it's a CJ Sam walk and talk.
Yeah, love. Like, what a great seamless transition from like Leo to Danny, CJ, and now it was CJ and Sam. Gorgeous. They're still talking about like the signs and the signals surrounding how President Bartlet talks about FLOTUS.
Which is also interesting because they're saying, CJ, you need to learn the signs, which makes me think that Sam and Josh have been with Bartlet since the campaign, but that CJ was hired in after he'd won. I feel like CJ was not on the campaign with the lads.
Yeah. And I do feel like there have been kind of indications towards that, like that they're a core group. However, also Toby wasn't on the campaign trail either, was he? Mm-hmm. Because they had that conversation, him and Bartlet, where he was like, was I your second choice?
Yeah. So I feel like Josh and Sam and Leo were on his campaign and then got jobs in the administration. And then I feel like Toby and CJ were new hires.
I'm so glad we've worked that out.
Yeah.
It's only taken us 17 episodes, but good. Should we go and see like Charlie and Zoe in a diner, just like having a cute lunch date?
So cute. Also, Zoe's outfit. Can we discuss the charmed realness of Zoe's outfit? She looks so good. She's had a glow up over the course of season 1 to just being like that hot bitch.
I think it's the first term at university.
Yeah, she's gone from a kind of like gawky teenage girl to being like, I have landed at university. I know that I'm like a hot piece of ass and also like an intellectually stimulating conversation partner. So watch out, world. Here I come.
I'm going to put on like a dark lip color and a leather jacket.
Oh, yeah. So good.
She is just every 19-year-old person who's just started college.
And got their first leather jacket.
Got their first leather jacket and been like, maybe this is my personality now.
Yeah.
But just her and Charlie are sharing lunch and he's like joking. He's like, oh, that suit that I bought for this club opening, like I've taken it back. I've actually bought another suit and like, ha 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 ha. And then she tells him that he can't come along to the club opening. And you know what? Props to Charlie. Charlie is really sad and also very frustrated. But I do feel like his frustration is understandable. Like he's not angry with her. He's angry at the scenario.
Yes. And also it is difficult because he is in a relationship with someone who has privilege that he does not have in a kind of multifaceted way. And I think that frustration is totally warranted in terms of being like, but you will never understand how this feels.
Mm-hmm. Also, we find out in this little back and forth that Zoe is reading the same book as Donna, which is quite cute.
I like to think that Zoe's been like about the West Wing and has been reading this book for a course, and Donna's been like, what's that? That looks interesting. And then Zoe's been like, oh yeah, it's really fun. And they've like had a little conversation off screen that we've not seen.
The like devastating news from the scene with Charlie and Zoe is that like obviously Zoe's like a bit upset after their little tiff, and she's like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, and Gina just like says into like her little mic, she's like, book bag's on the move, which means
Book bag is such a cute Secret Service name.
honestly, like I let out a little squeak. Book bag. Her Secret Service name is book bag. And then Gina and Charlie have a very respectful conversation about it.
Yeah.
Like Gina's like, look, we did the research. Like, I'm sorry. Like, this isn't going to work out. Like, don't take it out on her. And he's like, I'm not. I'm just angry that like we are like it's present day and this is still an issue that like who like that I shouldn't date her in the eyes of some people.
Yeah.
Should we see if Sam can get on better with Lily second time round? Sam goes back to talk to Lily a second time to find out about this leak. And just in the room is just Abby Bartlett, and the whole thing is an ambush.
Fully FLOTUS.
Yeah, it's an ambush. Lily was never there. Abby's like, Sam, I don't understand. We used to be very close.
Oh my God. She's literally like, you know, that kind of spider that like pulls in her prey.
She's crazy. She's so crazy. And actually, like, I mean, Sam is quite rude, but I think what he does is and I don't want to defend Sam Seaborn, but I think he does speak to her like he speaks to her not as his boss's wife, but as another political person.
Yes. And this will bear interesting fruit, I think. What he says to her will bear interesting fruit in our study session.
Cool. Because he says, I believe you're prone to making amateur mistakes.
Which is a crazy thing to say to the First Lady of the United States, but I also do kind of slightly get where he's coming from.
Yeah. So unfortunately, it is a bit grim, but I have to say that I think Abby takes it well. And I feel like that shows that she's like, no, I know that this is a job and I want to do that job well. Yeah.
It's just very, what is that film? La La Land. There's a nicer way to say that, Karen.
Yeah, definitely. Let's touch in quickly on Danny's secret meeting with the president. Firstly, he has like a little bit of banter with Mrs. Landingham, and then she just says like that she's not going to offer him a cookie, which I love. And then Abby Bartlett kind of crosses through, and he's like, "Oh, are you here for the Many Michigan Women thing?" And she says, "The Michigan Women's Democratic Caucus, yes."
Obsessed.
So I thank Abby for that correction. And then Charlie comes in and is like sat at his desk and he's a little bit sad and grumpy. And we have this gorgeous exchange where like Danny just like older brothers Charlie.
I did not see this for Danny.
Yeah.
But it is such a beautiful representation of masculinity, this exchange between these two young men.
And I think the thing that I like is that Danny isn't like, this is what you should do. I think Danny's just like in a very journalistic way being like, look, this is the optics of it. Like, why don't just take a minute and think about it and then you can make your own decision. Yeah. But, you know, because Charlie sat there at his desk being like, oh, it's, you know, the white supremacists and like, obviously they have a problem with me because I'm black. And Danny says, I don't think the problem is that you're black. I think the problem is that you're stupid. To which Charlie says, well, thanks, Danny. You picked me right up. And Danny goes on to say, 2,000 marriage proposals, 2,000 death threats, a dozen bodyguards. Everybody wants to get close. Everybody wants a thing. Plus, and I say this standing 15 feet away from the Oval Office, life with father. I'm just not going to do this in an American accent because I can never say father. Plus, and I say this standing 15 feet away from the Oval Office, life with father couldn't have been a real company picnic. If it were me, just for now, I'd just make sure that I was the one guy who was hassle-free. But that's just me.
I love that.
It's just him being like, look, why don't you just be the person who she doesn't have to like argue with? Why don't you just be there for her? Because actually, as much as it's kind of terrifying being in your position, she's also in a different position that's also kind of terrifying in its own way.
Yeah. And actually, maybe this is something that you two could connect over and it could bring you closer together.
We enter the Oval Office and find out what the purpose of the secret meeting was, which is that Jed Bartlet wants Danny to tell him who the source is in FLOTUS's staff. And obviously, because Danny is just an incredible man, he's like, well, it's my journalistic kind of like backbone that I would never do that. I would never reveal a source to you. I can't give up
someone else's source.
Yeah. But also the thing that we find interesting is that Danny and Jed were like close on the campaign trail. Like Jed says, I miss our little chats. And also, I don't know if you caught this, Leigh, but like Danny has written a book on FLOTUS.
Obsessed.
He says, oh, you know my wife well. You quite literally wrote the book on her.
Yeah.
And obviously Danny's kind of takeaway is just like, why don't you just talk to your wife?
Please just talk to your wife.
To the Women's Caucus and Congresswoman Becky, I'm not sure if, but Abby Bartlet going up to her and basically being like, I've been told to kill this amendment that you want to do. She just says something bizarre, which she says, we're not on the back of Steve's boat anymore. Don't bargain with me, Becky.
I think that's just meant to imply that they're like socially friends as well. Maybe before she was FLOTUS. Yeah.
Yeah. And also like, I am FLOTUS now. We're not like in the Hamptons in the summer.
Yeah.
Like, I'm telling you to do something and you have to do it.
Yeah.
Also, we go back to the Oval Office and Leo is reading an extract from this book. So it's obviously doing the rounds at the West Wing. He also cracks a joke about like how 100 years ago people used heroin like very casually. And he was like, ha 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 ha. Like, I wish someone would have told me that. And I was like, good for you, Leo. Just like having
cracking
cracking jokes with your bestie about, your journey with drugs. Enter Abby Bartlet.
With the most threatening opening line I have ever heard. I was terrified on Jed's behalf.
Oh, this scene is bonkers.
I do see that you have copied it out in its entirety.
Because I would like us to read it out.
Okay.
She approaches Jed Bartlet and just says, hello, pumpkin. Hello, gumdrop.
The next time, I think me and my girlfriend have yet to officially have like our first like fight. Mm-hmm. But I hope that I have the gumption, nay the gall, to walk into spoiling for a fight with my partner and opening with, hello, pumpkin. Hello, gumdrop.
Yeah. And it turns out she's like, you need to drop this Ron Ehrlich thing. Why are you so pissed about it? We used to date.
Oh.
At one point, she just screams at him, don't handle me, Jed.
Obsessed.
Would you like to be Jed or would you like to be Abby?
I would like to be Abby, please.
Okay. So we're going to read a little section for you. Well, you put me in a bit of a spot there, Abigail. I name Ron Ehrlich now, which I was going to do anyway, and it looks like I'm taking instructions from my wife.
Still, it was wrong.
Are you talking about you or me?
I'm talking about you. I'm talking about you sending people to me. And I'll tell you what else I'm talking about. I'm talking about you waiting a day to name a new Fed chair because 30 years ago, the new Fed chair was my boyfriend for 6 months.
I'm talking about sending messages through the press and staking out agendas on morning shows. We're not going to be these people, Abby. I'm not going to do it. I'll walk up the hill right now and I'll give the Speaker of the House my resignation.
The House isn't in session.
Well, do you want to see me get on the phone and put it in session?
Don't raise your voice at me.
And it was 9 months, Abby, not 6 months. And I waited a day on Skippy because the Fed chair is a fairly important position and I wanted to make damn sure my decision was right.
You already made your decision.
Well, how the hell do you know that?
You just said so. I name Ron Ehrlich now, which I was going to do anyway. It looks like I'm taking instructions from my wife.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I love them.
I love them.
Also, like, low-key, they're going to have, like, crazy sex.
Oh, it's going to be really good. Yeah.
I'm disgusted at myself. One of the other fantastic lines from this is Jed just saying, no, just be wrong. Just stand there in your wrongness and be wrong and get used to it. And then like on the topic of this, like he's like, why are you so like worried about this like child labor thing? It just like, I'm just like not about it at all. And she just turns to him and she says, if it was one of our girls in that factory, you'd send in the Marines.
Which leads me to a point that I meant to make last week, which is that I feel quite strongly that Abby and Jed have 3 daughters, because I think families, specifically with 3 daughters, have a super specific energy.
Continue.
I just feel that there's every family that you meet that specifically has 3 daughters, not 2, not 4, but 3 daughters and no other siblings. It's like raising Charlie's Angels. Do you know what I mean? It's like raising the Powerpuff Girls. Like it's just like, it's almost like 3 is the most powerful magical number. Like it just somehow, it's like you've birthed Atomic Kitten or the Sugar Babes. It's just yeah.
Like there's a possibility of a girl group there. Like it has a different weight to it. Yeah. Okay, I'm with you. And they close out their like little moment by just being like, we had our first Oval Office fight. Which is hot, and we know that they'll make up for it later. Let's close out this ep with our cuties. Yes. Our little cuties. We're in the halls of Georgetown. Oh. And Charlie's got like a bunch of flowers, and he's like
just
going up,
striding through the
dorm rooms,
kind of raggedy college kids in his full suit, and he looks so handsome.
And he gets to Zoe's door, and like Gina has the room opposite, and he looks at her, and she like gives him the nod, like, good on you, boy, like you're doing the right thing. You did good, kid. And he knocks on the door, and like, not Zoe Bartlet just answering the door, like wet hair and like an oversized plaid shirt.
It's so rock and roll.
And then he says that he has like flowers and popcorn and videos, and that they're just going to hang out
rather than going to the club opening, because the most important thing is that they're together.
And then she's like, get in here, you. Wink, wink. Anyway, everyone's getting laid, and I'm thrilled. What an episode.
What an episode.
Quick fires?
Please.
Best fashion.
Zoe's black leather jacket and dark lip.
For me, I think actually it's her late night college look. It's the wet hair and the oversized plaid shirt.
Oh, yeah. It's very you and uni coded.
Yeah. I will just say honourable mensch just to Ginger.
Yeah, we've been sleeping on Ginger for sure.
Yeah. What could a British or Irish politician never get away with?
Sending their staff to speak to their wife.
I mean, yeah, that's low. I would say for me, it's a toss-up between like their wife having publicly dated another politician or their daughter like dating one of their team. Like realistically.
Oh, yeah, that is an excellent point. Yeah.
Like the British press would just ruin those people's lives. Like the paps would just ruin their lives.
Have we even had a prime minister with like a teenage daughter in like living memory? Because I feel like we obviously famously had Chelsea Clinton in America. And
do you know what? That's a really good question. I mean, obviously with Boris Johnson, he just had like an unknown number of children.
An unspecified number of children. But they didn't feel like super present in his life, respectfully.
No, well, obviously, famously, most of them were love children, so they weren't in Downing Street. No, I'll have to do some research into that. In terms of like our bingo card of guns, abortion, free speech, religion, the big topics, actually quite morality light ep here. But just a decent amount of misogyny, I suppose.
I suppose also we are looking at like racism and interracial relationships.
Oh yeah, no, that definitely. Wow, how awful of me to forget that.
I think you were just blinded by your love of Charlie and Zoe as individuals.
Yeah, I think as just them as star-crossed lovers.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Man, I feel like a man.
Calling the First Lady of the United States an amateur?
Yeah. I think for me, the pettiest line, there's some choices in this one, was just be wrong, just stand there in your wrongness and be wrong and get used to it.
Yeah.
And what made you proudest to be an American?
When Charlie shows up at Zoe's door, she asks, are there other things you feel bad about? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, list them, please.
Oh, Zoe.
What a boundary queen. She's learned well from Mrs. Landingham.
She really has. For me, I think just one of the most American things was if it was one of our girls in that factory, you'd have sent in the Marines.
Yeah, that is so true. That is so true.
Hot. Anyway, what are we learning about today, Leigh?
We are going to learn a little bit, as I promised in our FLOTUS app. We're going to learn a little bit about Hillary Clinton.
Great.
But specifically in her FLOTUS era. Because I feel like that's obviously like a huge context for this episode. I think it's very much like a response to Hillary Clinton, the way that Stockard Channing is kind of Abby Bartlet is framed. And also I think we kind of forget a little bit at times about Hillary Clinton's FLOTUS era. And I think her FLOTUS era actually really shaped some of the reasons why she lost the 2016 election.
Okay, continue.
Now, I will just say Hillary Clinton is obviously a controversial figure for a variety of reasons. We don't have an unqualified support of all of Hillary Clinton's stances and political views. I do just think it's interesting to see the evolution of her and the way that she was vilified by the press as First Lady. But that is not to say that she is solely a victim or that some of the critiques of Hillary Clinton are not incredibly valid, because I think they are.
Confirmed.
Now, we start at Wellesley College with Hilary Rodham in 1969. She is elected as the class of 69's first ever student speaker at commencement.
Oh, first ever female student speaker.
No, Wellesley is a female college.
Oh.
So like we're in like Mona Lisa smile. That's what we need to imagine.
Okay,
we're in Mona Lisa
I'm
smile.
Here, I'm with you.
Hilary is Kirsten Dunst, right?
Okay.
Or Maggie Gyllenhaal. You know, it's that kind of, that's the energy, that's the vibe. They've not before had a student speaker. Hillary Clinton is the first one. I should say Hilary Rodham. Now, did I deliver this speech at drama school as a monologue? Yes, I may have done. Yes.
Okay. This is a safe space, Leigh.
She's introduced, the class of 69 has expressed a desire for a student to speak to them and for them at this morning's commencement. There was no debate, so far as I could ascertain, as to who their spokesman was to be. I don't know why we said spokesman when it was a women's college. Miss Hilary Rodham. Member of this graduating class, she is a major in political science and a candidate for the degree with honours. In 4 years, she has combined academic ability with active service to the college. She is also cheerful, good-humoured, good company, and a good friend to all of us. And it is a great pleasure to present to this audience Miss Hilary Rodham.
She's cheerful.
Now, Hillary was actually following the kind of celebrity speaker, if you will, which was US Senator Edward Brooke, and a classmate of Hillary's, Nancy Wanderer, great surname, recalled, Senator Brooke basically told us everything was fine and the people who were protesting were elite ne'er-do-wells. I remember sitting in my seat fuming, because obviously we're in the 60s, like we're in the civil rights movement, like everything is not fine.
Yeah.
Hilary opens her speech by saying, I'm very glad that Miss Adams made it clear that what I am speaking for today is all of us, the 400 of us, and I find myself in a familiar position, that of reacting, something our generation has been doing for quite a while now. We're not in the positions of power yet, of leadership and power, but we do have the indispensable element of criticizing and constructive protest, and I find myself reacting just briefly to some of the things that Senator Brooke said. This has to be quick because I do have a speech to give. Part of the problem with just empathy with our professed goals is that empathy doesn't do us anything. We've had lots of empathy. We've had lots of sympathy, but we feel that for too long our leaders have viewed politics as the art of the possible. And the challenge now is to practice politics as the art of making what appears to be impossible possible. So here we learn Hillary was a bit of a radical.
Yeah. She was a rabble rouser. Was she rousing rabbles?
She was rousing rabbles. And she closes her speech by saying, "One of the most tragic things that happened yesterday, a beautiful day, was that I was talking to a woman who said that she wouldn't want to be me for anything in the world. She wouldn't want to live today and look ahead at what it is she sees because she's afraid. Fear is always with us, but we just don't have time for it. Not now."
What a great speech. As like a 21-year-old?
As a 21-year-old, yeah.
Wow.
She then goes to Yale Law School, where she meets a young man by the name of Bill. They met in the library, and apparently she strode up to him and said, "If you're going to keep staring at me, I might as well introduce myself."
No, shut up. Love that as a chat up line.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And also love that she was the one that strode up to him. But a 21-year-old taking on a US senator in a commencement speech was headline news in 1969. So by this time, Hilary was like already a bit of a celebrity because they had written about her commencement speech in the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Chicago Tribune. And it led to her having her being featured with other notable students who graduated in 1969 in Life magazine.
Oh my God.
So she's already made herself like a political mover and shaker just with her commencement speech at her uni graduation. We move on to 10 years later. Hillary Clinton is 1 month into her first spell as the First Lady of Arkansas.
Okay.
And she's being interviewed on local TV because Bill Clinton was the governor of Arkansas before he was president.
Right. And may I ask a very quick question?
Mm-hmm.
What is the difference between a governor and a senator?
So the governor is like the president of the state.
Right.
So they are the executive branch. So they are the head of the executive branch in a particular state.
Right. Rather than being in the legislative branch. Is the senator.
The senator is also elected to statewide office, but is sent to DC to legislate on behalf of the state.
With you. Thank you.
Yeah. So she's being interviewed on local TV. And the interviewer says, "You don't really fit the image we have created for the governor's wife in Arkansas. You're not a native. You've been educated in liberal Eastern universities. You're less than 40. You don't have any children. You don't use your husband's name. You practice law. Does it concern you that maybe other people feel that you don't fit the image that we've created for the governor's wife in Arkansas?"
Tell me how she responded, please.
She says, "I think that each person should be assessed and judged on that person's own merits. I'm not 40, but that will hopefully be cured with age. Eventually I will be. That doesn't bother me, and I hope that it doesn't bother very many people. I think in a way it's a kind of tribute to the state that someone who may or may not fit an image is accepted on her own terms."
Like such a classy response to like a very rude question.
Yeah. And at this point, Hillary Clinton doesn't yet look like Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton has like brown, wavy, kind of mid-length hair at this point. She's got her big glasses on. She's looking every inch the kind of like East Coast intellectual.
She's not met Martha Stewart yet.
She's not met Martha Stewart yet, correct. And basically, when Bill Clinton ran for re-election in 1980 and lost, people blamed Hillary.
Sure. Yeah.
Apparently it was because of Hillary's hair.
That's a valid reason for someone to lose, like a race to be...
Someone's husband to lose an election.
Yeah.
Yeah, they basically said that like it was because she emasculated him by not using his name, because she was still practicing law as Hilary Rodham, the fact that she hadn't given up her career, all of these things. So she then had a bit of a like 90s rom-com makeover after this. Yeah. And the Los Angeles Times reported Clinton went from looking like a myopic Springer Spaniel to looking like an aging Rush captain. She bleached multi-hued blonde streaks into her long wavy brown hair, cropped it into a pert bob, and clamped a black velvet headband onto her crown. It's just the most misogynist shite.
Like you can't win, can you, in those scenarios? Like they're always going to find a way to drag you down. Oh, you're not right. You don't fit this mold. Mm-hmm. Oh, you've tried to change. How embarrassing.
Yeah, literally. And it's I think we cannot overemphasize enough that a lot of this was because she wasn't a homemaker.
It feels very similar to the way that is it Marsha Clark, who was the district attorney in the O.J. Simpson trial?
Yes. Yes,
people were like,
yes.
oh my God, look at her. Like she smokes and she's like, her hair's this and the way that she dresses. And then she tried to change her image and they were like, oh my God, how embarrassing. She's tried to change her image.
Yes. And obviously that is very much like the same period of history. So it just goes to show again, as much as we like love 90s fashion, the 90s were a really hateful time to be a woman.
Yeah.
Especially a woman in like public professional office. So Tammy R. Vigil, who's an assistant professor of communications at Boston University, kind of sums up how Hillary Clinton's experience was of the Clinton campaign to become president. Right out of the gate, she was getting slammed for the pantsuits, the hair, the headbands, her appearance, her life choices, and everything she said was so heavily scrutinized. I think she became defensive. The Republicans in 1992 were using terms like feminazi, claiming that she wanted to destroy the fabric of the American family because she wasn't a stay-at-home mom.
And it is the 90s. It's not like, this is not like 1965.
No, it's crazy. And obviously, President Bush Sr. is who Clinton was running against in his first presidential campaign. And President Bush Sr. was the incumbent. He'd had one term in office already. And Hillary Clinton was being very much compared to Barbara Bush, who was like an exemplary presidential wife by the standards of the time, because she was like a sweet Southern lady who had devoted her life to raising her children. You know, kind of trad wife vibes, dare I say?
Yeah.
Whereas Clinton was an ambitious working mother. And unfortunately, Hillary Clinton, when she kind of tried to clap back to this criticism, ended up offending people because she wasn't super like media savvy yet. And she's just quite an outspoken person. Like, as we saw before, she was kind of like a radical when she was in university. So she's not kind of media trained, which I think is how I think this particular episode is kind of commenting on that when Sam, as the deputy communications director, turns to Abby Bartlet and is like, some of the things you do make you look like an amateur. I think that's very much responding to what would have been quite recent history with Hillary Clinton, in that when the Clinton campaign was rocked by allegations from Jennifer Flowers that she'd had a 12-year affair with Bill Clinton, Hillary was asked about it in a 60 Minutes interview that she did with Bill. And she responded by saying, I'm not sitting here, some little woman standing by my man like Tammy Wynette. I'm sitting here because I love and respect him. Which obviously offended the country singer Tammy Wynette, who sang Stand By Your Man. And she responded by saying, I can assure you, in spite of your education, you will find I'm just as bright as yourself.
And you're like, what Hillary was saying wasn't itself so good, but why did she have to like pull down a woman in order to say it?
Exactly. It does have a little bit of a, I'm not like the other girls energy. But I can also get how, if you are trying to exist as a woman in the 90s in public life, that you would be kind of pushed to like a, I'm not like the other girls stance.
Yeah.
And then she was forced to defend continuing her legal career, and she responded by saying, I suppose I could, this is a famous thing that made people hate her, is she said, I suppose I could have stayed at home and baked cookies and had teas, but what I decided to do was fulfill my profession, which I had entered before my husband was in public life. Like, you can see that that's coming from like a place of like rage and being defensive and having just experienced misogynist attack after misogynist attack. But unfortunately, it's just not a good look.
No, because this is the most like powerful part of like patriarchy, is that it makes the fight between women as opposed to making it about equality between all the genders. I just think it's like, oh, well, actually, I have to be there. It's saying that there's a perfect type of woman to be, and therefore it's actually about pitting yourself against other women. And again, that's like kind of a product of that period of time. And you can see how she ended up walking down that road of thought. But it's so frustrating to be like, oh, well, like, you know, I'm actually a better woman because I'm not a stay-at-home mum. Like,
we've now offended every housewife in America.
Like, take a beat and think about the optics.
Yeah. And it, I mean, it just goes to show, as is being displayed in the West Wing throughout, is that like men can afford to be hot-headed women in public life cannot.
Yeah.
Which led to the famous 1993 cover of Spy magazine, in which there is a doctored photo of Hillary Clinton dressed as a dominatrix with the headline, "What Hillary Problem? Power Playing the Clinton White House."
Which, if you think about it, like putting yourself in her shoes, like it would have been so humiliating to be like so consistently in the news for, and again, that thing of being like, oh, well, she's outspoken, she's bossy, she's rude, she's a bitch, she's dominating her husband. Like, to have to read that headline over and over again, and like comedy, like doctored photos of yourself, like,
it's crazy.
It's gonna wear you down. Like, no wonder she's...
And I can also totally see how you would, as like a working mom in your, at this point, 30s, 40s, how you would go from, how did I go from being celebrated at 21 as this like exciting, radical political voice to the main conversation about me being about the fact that I wear trousers and my hair?
Yeah.
It would just be infuriating. It would be like, oh, so my identity, my ideas don't matter.
But again, that comes back to like the insidious quality like of patriarchy, and the fact that by making people obsess over things like her clothes and her hair, and the fact that she, you know, says that, you know, being a working mum is better than being a stay-at-home mum, suddenly we're not talking about her politics. We're not talking about her views on like legislation or law. We're reducing her to aesthetic and to image, and therefore making other women feel like that is actually the most important thing, and therefore removing us from talking about politics because that's perceived to be unsexy and not feminine. So it's like doubly frustrating because it's like you say, yeah, this like amazing, bright young woman got turned into this sort of bitter, middle-aged person.
Yeah.
Because patriarchy continued to smash her down over and over again, because it wasn't about what she stood for or what she wanted to work on or how she wanted to change politics. It was about the fact that like, wasn't her hairband like so lame, and like, shouldn't she be wearing a skirt suit?
She was asked so many crazy questions. In 1992, an interviewer asked her, can a first lady be both popular and opinionated?
Sigh.
Katie Couric in a 1993 interview said, millions of other people see you as a very threatening person. Why do you think you are such a lightning rod? What about the comparisons to Lady Macbeth? Do you think it's because you're a powerful woman, or where does that come from? You don't walk around the White House saying out damn spot?
That is insane.
From Katie Couric.
Like, that's so insane.
Barbara Walters in a 1996 interview said, do you think the American people are ready yet to have a first lady who has strong opinions and an agenda? So I do feel like this episode is very much commenting on and responding to that climate.
Yeah, and I actually, in that way, I think the representation of Abby Bartlet as someone who's like, I'm going to take that feedback from you, Sam Seaborn. It was impolite, but it's pertinent because I'm here to do a job. I'm not here to, you know, have tea parties with
Which is why I think the depiction of Abby Bartlet in this show is actually kind of very forward-thinking and progressive. A couple of things kind of further rocked Hillary's popularity as First Lady. There was Travelgate, in which the media kind of span it as if she had ordered the firing of the head of the travel office, who was popular amongst the mostly male White House press corps. When in actuality, what had happened was in 1993, when the Clintons came into the West Wing, they inherited the White House travel office, which books travel and accommodations for the White House press corps. It was completely a mess. Billy Dale, who'd been running the office since 1982, was later prosecuted for like embezzlement.
Cool.
He was keeping all his records on a handwritten ledger and wasn't using a competitive bidding process when choosing providers. Just like so much money waste. And lawyers were called in, an audit was recommended. The lawyers requested an FBI investigation. KPMG conducted an audit and found discrepancies, but then it was accused that the Clintons had purposefully fired the staffers so that they could replace them with their preferred employees. An investigation did eventually find that Hillary Clinton had no direct role in the firings, but the damage at that point was already done in that it was seen that Hillary had marched into the West Wing and fired people she didn't like.
Yeah.
Again, I think because she was being seen, she'd been painted already as this kind of like Machiavellian, like Lady Macbeth power-grabbing character, purely because she continued to practice law when her husband was governor of Arkansas. But so the damage was kind of already done, even though she was found to have had no wrongdoing and actually wasn't even involved in the situation. She also moved her offices as First Lady from the East Wing into the West Wing because she wanted to be more in the center of the action. But people saw that as a power grab.
I mean, that is quite a move to do that.
Yeah. But what really, really messed up Hillary's favorability ratings as FLOTUS was healthcare.
Okay, yeah. So this is what you'd mentioned in the FLOTUS app. She tried to do big policy and that backfired.
Yeah. So Bill Clinton had campaigned on bringing health insurance to every American, basically moving towards universal coverage. Hillary Clinton was involved in these meetings before Bill Clinton took office. It was kind of, there were rumors that she was going to have a bigger role in the administration than just being First Lady. The idea of a First Lady taking part in governing was unorthodox. Various people who were kind of in the Clinton sphere at this time remember there being a whole kind of series of phone calls and meetings in the governor's mansion in Arkansas where they still were as they were prepping for the transition about her taking on chief of staff, attorney general, secretary of education. And basically everyone was like, no, that cannot happen. And it was suggested that she potentially lead a task force instead to build her own credentials and accomplishments. Although in her memoir, Living History, Hillary Clinton broaches it as Bill first suggested the idea of her leading a task force on healthcare.
Okay.
Now, the kind of general wisdom at the time was that you go to Congress and you say, you give the kind of pitch and you say, I'd like some legislation that would achieve this, and kind of partner with Congress for Congress to write the legislation. But it became clear that that wasn't kind of in the Clintons' vision. They wanted to kind of take control over and write the legislation and then hand it over to Congress, which they were warned was maybe a kind of slightly crazy move. And then they got into trouble because they wouldn't release the names of the task force members. And a suit was filed saying that closed meetings were illegal because some of the participants were not federal employees. The administration tried to say that the First Lady was like the functional equivalent of a federal employee, but a judge disagreed. And basically the final legislation they came up with was 1,342 pages.
Oh.
And it was so intricate that health policy experts couldn't understand it themselves. And basically Hillary Clinton had offended a lot of Congress because she hadn't given deference to the kind of historic work that many members of Congress had tried to do on the issue. And it was then kind of dubbed Hillary Care. And basically it never even went to a vote in Congress because it just didn't have the support.
What a mess.
In 1999, when she was running for Senate, as she was leaving her first ladyship, she said to the senator from New York, who she was campaigning to replace, if I had listened to you about healthcare in 1994, I would be far better off today, but more importantly, so would the nation's healthcare system. But the common wisdom today is that the Clintons' failure to shape a new strategy for healthcare very much shaped what ended up being the Affordable Care Act under President Obama. Basically, Obama learned from what went wrong there and was therefore able to pass the Affordable Obamacare.
Okay.
Unfortunately, this whole healthcare debacle led to just out and out hatred of Hillary Clinton. I'm sorry to say that in downtown Seattle, she was doing an event, and demonstrators had infiltrated the crowd with like Heil Hillary signs, impeach Hillary signs. There was also a sign, Hillary, why you take the bus, fly your broom. And she was like being booed. The Secret Service had to convince her to wear a bulletproof vest. And basically it was the hatred was because it was unprecedented for the First Lady to take charge in like a main policy initiative. And people just saw it as a power grab. And it basically just showed that she was new to Washington. She didn't understand how it worked. And she wasn't kind of respectful of the people who were saying this is not how it works. And therefore she kind of failed in her big attempt. She said in a speech for her 1999 US Senate race, "I now come from the school of small steps."
At least there's an element of self-awareness there, which I think is reassuring to an extent.
But yeah, so that is my brief summation of Hillary's tenure as FLOTUS, which I think really does go to inform, like, there was such vitriol and hatred for Hillary Clinton during her run against Donald Trump in 2016. And I do think that a lot of the I think there's lots to criticize Hillary Clinton on, don't get me wrong, but I think there is an illogical level of hatred for Hillary Clinton as a public figure. And I do think it has roots in her time as First Lady. And I think that this episode featuring Abby Bartlett is in conversation with that history in a really interesting way.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, like, as we go forward through the seasons of this show, how like the position of First Lady develops under Abby Bartlett, and is that kind of, I guess, like holding a looking glass up to the Hillary Clinton FLOTUS era. Maybe if there's more parallels to be found there. Yeah, what an interesting sesh. I'm glad we got into it a bit more about Hillary. Yeah. Because I think I was probably too young to like be taking in anything about the news in America during the Clinton administration. And so I kind of Hillary Clinton came into my life at her presidential race. So helpful context.
Yeah. We are Queer Gals Watch on all of the socials. Please do get in touch. We love hearing from you. Also, please do check out our Patreon. We love our Patreon subscribers. It's honestly like I get so overwhelmed that people are contributing to our Patreon. And also we are queergalswatch@gmail.com if you'd like to send us a little email, because we love hearing from you guys. And if you have a study sesh request with a particular stupid question, I'm always so excited to do a listener request.
Yeah, so we love your support. And also an amazing way you can support the show is just by like subscribing, leaving us a review, recommending us to your friends.
Literally, I mean, just if we could be but in your WhatsApp group chats, we would love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I suppose, Leigh, that all that's left to say is just see you again next week.
See you again next week, and long live the romance of Charlie and Zoe.
Long live flowers, popcorn, and videotapes.
Long live the walls they crash through.
Okay.
Just a red Taylor Swift reference there for those of you who are not Swifties. Thank you and good night.
Leigh, it's time for you to go now. Bye.